The rivalry is renewed as we get set for a new Battle of Ontario. Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the Leafs. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Maple Leafs writers Terry Koshan and Lance Hornby. And it is official for the first time in 21 years. The Maple Leafs and Senators will face off in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And guys, I'm sure you are just like me and a lot of other Maple Leafs fans waking up today. A lot of memories of those series are flooding back after 20 plus seasons. Terry, we'll start with you. I mean, it was definitely a crazy time for fans of both the Maple Leafs and the Senators, probably more so for Maple Leafs fans since they came out on top when the chips were actually down come the playoffs. But what sort of memories do you have about those series that had quite a bit of drama every time these two teams matched up?
Well, they did, and I think one of the things I remember, the excitement in both cities for sure. There was no doubt. I mean, you walk around downtown in Toronto or in the Byward Market in Ottawa during any of those series, and you can just feel it in the air. And that electricity obviously has been missing from the Battle of Ontario for 21 years. I mean, the regular season things just don't add up to that. And as we know, when the Sens have been good a few years ago, the Leafs haven't been, and vice versa more recently. So I just think that electric feel is going to be back for it. Obviously, it's around for any playoff series, but I think the Battle of Ontario just another added element to it. And the one thing I would tell people to keep in mind too, for those of you who are worried about what the Sens did to the Leafs in the regular season, if you're history buffs or not, the Leafs beat the Sens all four times they met them in the early 2000s, and in three of those regular seasons of the four, Ottawa owned the Leafs. Came playoff time, it didn't matter. So I think you can throw a lot of that out the window once the puck drops for game one, but I'm just looking forward to what I think should be a hell of a series, and certainly one that I don't think is going to be over quickly. I just think it's going to go long, but I really like this matchup for the Maple Leafs for sure.
I just remember that I equated those series with Leaf success. The town was really happy. It was probably the last time the Leafs have had a chance to lord it over anybody, really, with the exception of maybe just a few minutes time when they defeated Tampa Bay a couple of years ago. But this is the series that people wanted. This is, I mean, the rough and tumble series was definitely going to be Florida. The physical series, I think, not that this one won't be. The run and gun was going to be Tampa. This is what the people wanted. So I'm happy certainly for them and people in Ottawa as well. And lots of jokes going up and down about this being it's going to be 4 home games for the Leafs in Ottawa, 1 through 4. But we'll have to see what kind of a blue and white presence gets down there. But just excited for playoffs to start and something out of the ordinary, which they haven't had. They've been on that kind of treadmill of Boston, Tampa Bay, Florida. This has something different, and it has an element of history, and it's Canadian at a time where everybody's wrapping themselves in the flag. So looking forward to it from that perspective, certainly.
So, despite the fact that the Maple Leafs just won the Atlantic Division for the first time in quite a while, and the fact that they set a record for most road wins in a season, Terry, I think everybody is circling this time of year. This is when it all matters. This is what it is all about. And coming into the season with Craig Berube, I think a lot of people wondered what kind of impact he would have on this team, and could he be the one to get them over the hump? When you look at now 81 games in the books as we've recorded this, do you feel as though this team is better prepared for quote unquote playoff hockey under their new head coach?
Yeah, I do. 100 points on paper, another 100-point season on paper, similar to what Sheldon Keefe accomplished with this group, but it's just a grittier, more defensively sound team under Craig Berube. 5-on-5 goals have been cut by 34 at this point, from where they finished last year, from 168 down to 134. That's huge. I think the Leafs are third in that category right now, going into Wednesday night games. A year ago, they were around 19th. That's big. You measure defense in that sort of way, and the Leafs have been successful, and it's no coincidence that they do win the Atlantic Division for the first time. I just think that there's almost, Berube talked last night in Buffalo about the buy-in and how it had to start with the veteran leadership group, and it did, and it trickled down to everybody else. There's just something, I think, about the way that Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares are carrying themselves a bit right now. And there is, you can almost sense a feeling of, okay, what's happened in the past has really happened in the past. Enough is enough. Let's go and get this done properly. And I think that not only does that come from the leadership group, but obviously it's what Craig Berube has instilled. The guy's won a Stanley Cup behind the bench, played 1,000 games in the National Hockey League. He knows what he's doing. He's seen every situation play out, and he has his team playing really good hockey. And then the other things too, guys, I think it's really important. Leafs are not backing in. Who cares what happens against Detroit? All you want is for it to be a no-hitter. They come out with it with no injuries. They could lose 10-1. It will not matter at all going into the playoffs. The fact is they played really good hockey here down the stretch and are full marks for clinching this division.
Well, I'd say certainly to Terry's point about the players saying enough is enough. I think the fans would say that too, that it's taken them this long really to figure out that, you almost push yourself to the end of the core four era. And these guys were, Matthews, Marner, especially backed into a corner where they really had to have good years. And this is the time certainly to show it. Or as we know, Marner is not signed. So I think the consequences of them not doing well are certainly there. I'd agree with Terry. It's a great defensive team, and we haven't even got much into the goaltending, which is the great 1-2 punch that they have. And let's remember what an advantage that was over Ottawa in going back 4 years, or any time the Leafs have decent goaltending. Certainly at playoff time, that's going to dictate a lot of how the series is going. For them, I think it's keeping the mistakes to a minimum, and they still have that crazy penchant for not starting on time now and then. Hopefully that's been washed from their system come playoff time, and they love the they love the daring do pass in their own end, which I think gets them into trouble now. Certainly Stolars and Wall have they're schooled for that. Some of their best saves I think have come off those breakout giveaways, which is still a little issue with the Leafs. But I think if Ottawa gets too aggressive and Toronto's power play rolls like it can, then it's going to be a great sign for the Leafs. So certainly think they're going to do well in this series, given that they've had a year to gel under Craig Berube.
One last thing to add with too is that discipline's key. The Leafs penalty kill has been bad since January 15th. I think 30th overall. If you start cutting it down to the midway point of each month, they're 28th and then 26th. It's just not been good for whatever reason. So that's going to be crucial against this Ottawa team. I don't have their power play stats in front of me, the Senators, but we know, Lance, how much special teams carries in the playoffs. So it's going to be important for the Leafs to be to really shore up at that end somehow here in the next 3 or 4 days before this thing gets going.
And McCabe will be back to help too.
Yeah, McCabe coming back too. Yeah, I mean that's. We'll see about once I'm going to touch on these 3 injured guys who could play against Detroit in camp, Ekman Larson and McCabe. Of those 3, McCabe is the guy that, they desperately need. Whether he plays Thursday, we'll have to see at the skate tomorrow. But we saw what he did with Tanev all year. And maybe this will be a bit of a bonus for Jake McCabe, having a bit of a rest, if you will, going into the playoffs. I don't think he's been out of the lineup long enough to say there's going to be rust there, and it's going to take him a long while to adjust. You'd say that about Max Pacioretty up front, but I don't think that'll be an issue for McCabe once this gets going.
Well, when it comes to the Senators' power play numbers, I did look it up. They have drawn the most power plays in the league.
Yeah,
so they are very adept at that, and the Maple Leafs will have to ensure they stay out of the box. The one parallel I've been trying to maybe draw in my mind for this series, guys, is the Maple Leafs the first year they got into the playoffs under Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, where they had obviously broken a long stretch of not making the postseason. They had all these young guys. It's been a little bit different for Ottawa, of course, because this young core has been around for a few years, but we all remember that Maple Leafs team put a bit of fear into a veteran Washington Capitals team before ultimately falling short. Lance, do you feel as though that there is maybe something that is kind of similar to this, where you've got a Senators team that is hungry for their first postseason action for a lot of these guys, going up against a veteran team that maybe doesn't have the same success as maybe some of those Washington guys, but it is kind of similar to that in that vein?
I'd say, Rob, that's a great point, and I think Ottawa is they've been out of the playoffs a long time, and certainly over my time in Toronto, there's been those lulls, and when they get back, the whole city gets excited. Yes, even Ottawa's kind of a fickle fan base that's sometimes has trouble embracing this team, but this is a very good a very good Ottawa team. Travis Green's made all the difference. I think he's going to have them in the right thing, and I think that's going to really bite into Toronto's home ice advantage. I think certainly the fact that they've done well, as we've touched on in the season series, it's not going to be intimidated here. It's just going to be, if the Leafs can just get this to a talent on talent, grit on grit, I think they're going to do well. But if Ottawa gets in their heads, it's going to be even getting a split in the first two games here is going to be very, very important. But I do like this Ottawa team. They do have, I think it's 10 Canadians on the club, and some of the most feisty guys you'll see is certainly in an American like Tkachuk. So I think it's going to be a really good series. I don't think there's a big intimidation factor for these Ottawa guys. And if they get one or two wins in the first four games, they can smell upset. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's where Craig Berube comes in with the experience that we mentioned before. Sheldon Keefe didn't have it, and Berube does, and I think that could be, if it's required, in a literal sense, a calming factor for the Maple Leafs. I think for me going into this series, two things are true. All the pressure is on the Leafs. Period. We know that. How do they handle that? We're about to find out. And I don't want to say the Senators have nothing to lose, but really they're in the playoffs for the first time since 2017. And really, you can look at this as the start of something for them, potentially. Even if they lose in the first round, if the Leafs did, like you mentioned, Rod, to the Caps, I guess what was it, 8 years ago, same year in 17. So it's a start of something for them. But Lance alluded to earlier, is at the end of something for the Leafs if they lose and Mitch Marner moves on to another team. And, there's obviously a different look to the core group coming back. But the pressure's on the Leafs. I don't necessarily think that's a negative thing, though. Like I said, about the experience that they have and just the way they've carried themselves this year and the way they've gone about winning hockey games. I think the thing to stress the Leafs too is they're good in tight games.
Yeah.
I mean, they're one of the best one goal decision teams in the league. We know that they really don't lose many games at all when leading after the third period. They keep those, or sorry, after the second, they keep those leads. But it's going to be interesting. But I think the Leafs will come out of it in the end. I wouldn't be too worried about the matchup per se. But we'll have to see. That's what the games are for, as we all like to know. And I think we're all looking forward to getting this thing going.
Absolutely. It all gets started on Sunday night. That is the expectation over at Scotiabank Arena. The Battle of Ontario set to go between the Maple Leafs and Senators. As always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. For Terry Koshan and Lance Hornby, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.